Hey friends, Rolf here again with the Louisville ProActivist report. Thanks for joining me today. We're in the middle of election season, so as we continue on with these series of interviews with candidates on your ballot, got another great candidate for you today, and it's right on my alley. We're talking to county clerk, so that's everything election related, and y'all know that's what I'm about. So let's get right into it. Let me switch this camera here and bring my guest on. All right, there we go. Say hello to Tina Ward-Pugh, who is running for Jefferson County Court Clerk.
Yes. Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me, Rolf.
All right, and we're here in your campaign office today. You all share this out. Just share this out. So we're going to dive right into it. So, County Clerk, just kind of give people an overview about what the duties are for that, what the job actually entails.
Sure. Yes, again, thank you for having me, Rolf. It's an honor to be on your program. The county clerk, what people traditionally know about the county clerk is that she is over our vehicles. Your vehicle tags, your boat tags, your trailer tags, but also it's where you get your marriage licenses. It's also over our deed room, which is where you'd go, of course, especially if you're an attorney or land use person, to get your deeds, to find that, or if you're doing an estate. And also, the thing that people really don't know that's in the county clerk's office is the Board of Elections. As a matter of fact, the county clerk is the chair of the Board of Elections. There is election commission and committee, and who oversee that and have the opportunity to have some restrictions and some opportunities and discretion to around our elections. So.
All right. Yeah, and that's definitely the most important part of the job. It's not the everyday part that most people will deal with, but at the end of the day, I think that's the main thing we're voting on here. Just kind of tell people a little bit about yourself, as far, not politically, but just a little bit about you and your ties to the community here.
Sure. So I actually came here in 1987 to go to graduate school. I graduated from Southern Seminary in 1991 with my master's in social work. And I always like to say that's when Dr. Roy Honeycutt was the president of Southern Seminary, and before they closed down our School of Social Work. And so I'm a proud social worker, and as a budding young social worker and feminist, right in the midst of understanding a broader perspective of who God is, and that I'm not always right about, what I believe about that, I started getting active in the community. I saw very clearly where, as the student government leader my senior year, where the Board of Trustees, were involved in actually pretty much taking over. We got to sit around the table and talk about decision makers. And I was very keenly aware that people who show up, people who run for office, people who are appointed to office, make a lot of choices and decisions about our lives. And I want to be at the table. So I started helping elect some women judges, because we didn't have nearly enough. Proud to say Ann O'Malley Shake and Patricia Walker Fitzgerald, Janice Martin, Denise Clayton, just some really astonishing women on the bench that actually changed the courts for the better as well, bringing about family court, which is a huge deal. And eviction court. I was at the Coalition for the Homeless, and, I'm marching on Washington for fair housing, for LGBTQ rights, and for women's access to health care. So I've just been long engaged in especially women's struggles and the advancement of women. And so I didn't think I'd ever run for office because I was happy behind the scenes, and had the opportunity to do that when I worked as legislative aide to the former First Ward Alderman Scotty Green. But I'll tell you, I think what helped me most was my tie to the community and my involvement, engagement in the community. We didn't always have the right answers. We didn't always have the best ideas, but as long as we showed up and we had an open dialogue and a conversation about what we did want our community to look like I was engaged with the Crescent Hill Community Council, the Frankfurt Avenue Business Association, a number of faith organizations throughout the community, as well as the Jefferson County chapter of NOW and the Jefferson County chapter of social workers, and the Women's Political Caucus. And so it was all of that, the combination of all of that, that brought me to the place where I would run for office in 1998.
And so what made you want to run for county clerk this time around?
Well, when I left Metro Council after serving for 16 years, 4 on the Board of Aldermen and 12 on Metro Council, I really didn't think I would run for office ever again because, I'm a firm believer that we need to do our time and our service and step back and let others come in and make a difference, because there's plenty of people out there who want to make a difference and who can, if we just get out of their way. And so that's why I left, to make room for that. But I looked up, the last 2.5 years, I've just been alarmed at what's happening around the country, how Republicans are really trying to torch our democracy by stifling voting at the ballot box. And so what I know is that even though I had confronted the current county clerk back at Women's Equality Day 2017 to say, how can you say we just can't find poll workers? How can you say nobody wants to work all day? How can you say, well, the pay is not good? And now, how can you say that when you have some control over that? And I will say, as it turns out, poll workers just so happen to get a raise this year as they're going to go to the polls in November. And I'd like to think that we are a part of bringing about that change. So the clerk's office is over the Board of Elections. And like I said, our current clerk hasn't spoken up. She hasn't spoken out, and she hasn't pushed back on what her party is doing around the country. She's not. And so I don't know what that means, other than she is silent about what's happening at the ballot box, the thing that she is over, the thing that she can with the other members of the Board of Elections can make some significant changes. And if nothing else, get out and advocate for the change that is needed. And so, I'm not saying I question the integrity of the elections. What I question is the energy and the lack of activity and the not getting out and trying to improve voter election and voter access. We've been asking for another West End satellite office. It just happened to open up a week before the primary election. We've been asking for, we wanted the three early week voting again for COVID. And I believe our Secretary of State advocated for that, but that didn't come about. But our county clerk was not advocating for that. She was looking in the camera and she was saying, I'm just going to wait for Frankfurt to tell me what to do. And that's when I decided to run for office, because I'm not going to wait for Frankfurt to tell me what to do. And even when they do, I'm still going to show up and I'm still going to press for more and better. There are 12% fewer voting locations, polling locations in the West End. Surprise, no surprise. Of course, it's not a surprise. But who's out there saying, I want to open more polling locations? No one is. The public is. Our clerk isn't. I'd like to have some, whether it's a central location or whether it's one in the east, south, and west, a 24-hour voting location. Maybe during those 3 days, one place is 24-hour, because you know what? I care about the night shift workers. I care about the folks who get off at 2, 3, and 4 in the morning and who go home and crash because it's morning. The polls open in 2 hours, they're not going to be awake. And so I'd like to have a 24-hour site so that people who do work those late shifts, in the factories, Ford and, third shift hospital workers, care providers. And I don't blame them, they've worked a shift, they're going home and they're going to miss this 12-hour window. Which reminds me, I think, as I understand it, what's minimally required is 12 hours. So I'm going to ask the question, why just the minimum? Why can't we have 12-hour voting? Why can't we say from 6 to 9? Why can't we say 9 to 9? There just are questions that, even if the answer is, well, you got to change state law, okay. So let's start working on changing the state law, because we care about that, because right now that's not happening. And by the way, having closing up or consolidating polling locations means the people who got to walk to vote got to walk farther to vote. Do you want to walk farther to vote? I don't think so. Nobody wants to walk farther to vote. And they used to not have to do that. So I'm saying, let's think about where people are in our entire community and what makes voting more accessible for them. I care about the deed room. I care about improving the technology from Windows 2003 to something else more modern and current. I care about improving the deed room. I care about those things. And by the way, I also care about welcoming people who come in to get their mayor's licenses who are same gender. I want to welcome them as much as I want to welcome them to take care of their car tags. And so the Board of Election, though, is my primary focus. Those are the kinds of things, again, we just shouldn't settle for what we've always done. We shouldn't settle for, well, I'm going to take out an ad in the Courier Journal because that's what's required to notify people about the election. Hey, why aren't we texting them? Why aren't we calling them? Why aren't we emailing them? Why aren't we taking out ads on social media? Why aren't we on Twitter? Why aren't we, knocking on doors? Why aren't we recruiting nonprofit, non-political organizations to work with us to find the felons who are eligible to vote but don't know it? Why aren't we doing that? I'm not saying the clerk's office can do everything, and it's going to be hard to change it, but there just is nothing happening, and there's not going to be anything that happens. And we deserve better. And people who have as many rights, have all the rights that everyone has, deserve our best efforts, because those are people who have those rights but don't have the same access to exercise those rights. We owe them and our community and our country our best efforts to change that.
All right, that was a lot there. You brought up the deed room. Can you just kind of explain what that is for anybody who might not know?
The deed room is the place where we categorize and keep all of the deeds that are ever from way back when we began as a city. So there are very old deeds. Used to be that it was only big books that were right about this, wide and way tall, and they were all plopped out. The clerk has done some improvements in there, and that's good. However, deeds from 1984 forward are the only ones that you have access to digitally, and some of them on microfiche, and others you just look up in a card catalog and it tells you what book to go find. And you go and you find your book and you drag it out and you open it up to the page. And it tells you all about your deed and cross-references other deeds and who owned this and who had that. And as you might imagine, that's pretty important. for people who own property, people who want to own property, people who want to know who has owned it, do they have a right to it? And right now, that there needs to be some updating in technology as well. So I'm hoping to go back a decade at a time because the technology is there to do that.
All right. So you also brought up the Board of Elections, and I know that's a big focus of your campaign. So talk about that a little bit more.
Well, like I said, I'm not suggesting, and even our Secretary of State about it has said we have election integrity. Even when people in his own party, his Republican Party, challenge the outcome of an election, he has said and continues to say, you're just wasting taxpayer dollars. There is no election in fraud happening. And I'm not saying that there is. What I'm saying is there's no action and there's no activity and there's no real burning for our county clerk in Jefferson County to care about doing all that she can do to provide access for everyone in this county to vote. And like I said, there are things that we have control over that can happen now. For example, there were people 2 years ago knocking on the door out at the fairgrounds to get in. They were in line in their cars inside the fairgrounds. When they ran up to the door, it could have been right 6 o'clock on the dot. It could have been 2 minutes after, but they were inside the fairgrounds, parking their cars, running to the doors. And what we know is that even though it hadn't happened and they initially were turned away, the clerk got to make the choice, the discretion, the decision to allow the people there to get it, to go in and vote. And so I'm like, so if you have that discretion, why aren't we trying to figure out if you're in line on Crittenden Drive at 6 o'clock, we're going to go get behind the last vehicle in line at Crittenden Drive, and nobody else gets to stack behind us. But if you're in line, shouldn't you be able to vote? And if you're standing in line, or if you're in your car in line at 6 o'clock, what's the difference? If the clerk has that discretion, why wouldn't we want everybody in line to vote? Because who knows what party they are, and who cares what party they are? I don't care what party they are. What I care about is the clerk should want to do everything she can to get people who have made their way from who knows where and what circumstances to vote, because they want to have a voice and a say in who represents them, which, oh, by the way, is the only way anything is ever going to change, is if we all show up and vote. We can vote them in and we can vote them out. You just got to vote. And I want to help you figure out how to do that more easily.
All right. So can you talk a little bit more about protecting the right to vote?
Yeah, I don't have the clerk's office doesn't have what I would describe as protecting a right to vote. But I do believe that the clerk does have a responsibility to create as much as she has the discretion, to create a system that basically, for example, like I just said, if the people in line in their vehicle are in line, but I don't let them in, I'm really not protecting their right to vote. I'm actually saying, no, sorry, I'm drawing a line somewhere, who knows, arbitrarily. And so protecting their vote, on the one hand, clerk has no say over that. On the other hand, her actions can protect their vote by trying to create and to create a space that's so big that allows everyone, regardless of your party, the best opportunity to vote.
Like that. So kind of touched on all my questions a little bit earlier, but let's talk a little bit more about expanding voter access.
Yeah.
What are your ideas on that?
Well, I wish they were all new ideas. They're not, which tells you that there are other states, yes, in this country, who have much more progressive access to voting than we do here in Kentucky. And that's only to say we've got a lot of work to do. It's not to say anything other than it'll take all of us to change those access to voting points because one person can't do it, one office can't do it. But so this is, I mean, I spoke about that a little earlier because, you know, I do. I want to expand. I want to expand when you're in line because all of a sudden we have a place where you have to drive and there's an enormous parking lot, whether it's at the hotel or whether it's at the Center for African American Heritage, wherever it is. Right now, it's a big parking lot, and so it's going to take some time to vote. And so part of what I think about is why don't we push the limits? Why don't we draw that line? Why don't we say if you are in line in your car, I don't care if you're down Crittenden Drive for a mile, if you're in line to vote at 6 o'clock, we're going to let you come in and park and vote. Right now, I know that we have a violation from the DOJ for a number of our locations, polling locations, not meeting the ADA requirements and guidelines, which is unbelievable at best that we wouldn't provide a door that opens or a ramp or a cut, curb cut, those kinds of things. So what I want to do is I want to ensure that every location, every voting location is completely accessible to anyone, regardless of ability. And then I think about, like I said, the third shift worker. Who knows? It may be very simple to have one of our sites, one of our global sites, super sites, to be a 24-hour voting location because there are plenty of people, like I said, who work the second and third shift, who get off at 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, sometimes 6 in the morning, especially after they got to go home and take their kids to the bus stop. They're not going to want to go. They don't feel like voting, or they're asleep because they just worked all night. And so surely we can create an opportunity for a site where it doesn't. And the other thing too is people are like, oh, well, nobody will come or not many people will come. You know what? Since when is that an excuse to not do what was right? And since when is it an excuse that it takes a certain number of people to use a facility for it to be validated as needed? I mean, we went through the same thing with the visually impaired people here in the 9th District. When voting machines came out that were assistive technology for the visually impaired, I want to expand that program. I don't want you to just have to live in a certain area where most visually impaired people live to be able to vote. I want to make it accessible, across the entire county. I also know that you're required to have a photo ID now. And so I'm saying there are people like Shamika Parrish-Wright and others who are working very hard with Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, and I admire all of them for their excellent work to try and not just restore felons' rights to vote. Thank you, Governor Andy Beshear, by the way. They have decided, Councilman and Shamika, Councilman Arthur and Shamika, that people are people, and people are worthy of us walking beside them and with them and listening and learning. And so we're looking at the jail. It's, first of all, seems to not be the safest place to be, regretfully. We yet another death in the jail recently. And so so I think about what their efforts are, not only to get folks in the jail registered to vote, but also as we think about, isn't there a way, surely there's a way that the Secretary of State has the roles of all the convicted felons, or perhaps it's the Kentucky State Police, that we can get that information. And I know surely there are plenty of people who actually would step up and be a part of a team, a task force, a group, an organization, who would go and find folks to say, did you know your rights have been restored? Because what according to Shamika and Councilman Arthur, a lot of people don't know that, and certainly the clerk's office isn't looking for them, but the clerk could help look for them, locate. And I guess the other thing that crosses my mind, and so the IDs, when you're in this is Councilman Arthur and Shamika's work. When you're incarcerated, that all your information you ever have is right there. Surely we can take a photo and create you a photo ID that you could then use to go and vote. Okay, that's what we need to do. That's what we need to do. And when we don't do it, because we don't have the political will to do it, or we get the pushback, your clerk's office is going to figure out a way to have a camera that goes from district to district, from every round corner of Jefferson County, taking the paperwork for people to fill out. We may have to buy a camera like you do when you get your driver's license, like the police departments have when they come out to make your kid care IDs and take some information. We'll do it, because we can't let these new voter suppression laws keep us from being creative about, reducing the barriers that they keep throwing up. So that's one of the things I'm committed to. I'm supporting them 100%. And then the last thing I want to talk about, which again, we're not on the cutting edge here in Kentucky. Others have done it, but it just occurs to me, because of the work that many of the folks listening to this today and others around the community, people who are in jail can't vote because they can't leave, and a lot of folks in the jail can't leave because they didn't have $50 in cash to pay to get out, and so or they are caught in between the hearing and the judgment, and nothing has been decided, but it can take longer than 12 hours, and certainly if you're caught in that period, you can't go. And so what I want to do is I want to support the efforts of Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur and Shamika and her new organization that I can't think of at the moment. What is it?
Is it vocal?
Vocal. It's
it's one of those two. I can't.
Yeah, sorry. It's a great, what everything that they do is phenomenal. I'll just say though, if it comes down to it, why don't we just make the jail a polling location? That's what I want to do. If there aren't people, if people are in jail and they're not qualified to vote, they're not registered, which would probably be the only reason they wouldn't be. I'm hoping the League of Women Voters, Councilman Arthur and Shamika and the others are going to be registering those voters while they're in there, whether it's once a week, once a month, whatever it is, to register folks if they're not registered. And when it rolls around to be election day, whether it's those 3 early voting days, one of those 3 early voting days, or whether it's on, this coming election, it would be in November. We'll just roll one of those machines. Actually, we'll take it over to the jail, set it up, and process with the help of all of the officials that run our jail, to ensure that everybody who wants to vote can vote. And that's the whole thing. That's about access to information, access to voting. I just don't think there's any energy or any interest in any of this with our current clerk, and there should be. You should value voting as much as you value vehicles. I mean, I get it, creating processes that help us renew our license and get our vehicle tags and stuff like that. No waiting to get those. Well, how about no waiting to come cast your vote? How about making it easier to come and cast your vote. How about making that at least as important as the rest of the job? And it's time for a change. Yeah.
And thank you for the comments. Been told in the comments it's vocal, Kentucky.
Yes.
Vocal.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And that's from Melanie. And if we have time, she's got a big question. We'll try to get that in at the end too. I do want to talk quickly. Something the current county clerk isn't very good on is educating voters about their options and things. So if you were to win, how would you implement sustained voter education?
Well, so I would say there are at least 2 tracks that would have to be done. And again, I'm going to say, I'm not making any promises that any of this will happen immediately. But what will happen immediately is we will begin to work towards making these things happen. You know, we're going to start out with an election next year for our governor and statewide offices. And so we will have to immediately do some of these things. Like I said earlier, I'd like to, I mean, there are people's phone numbers, there are people's emails that are associated with their names and their voter rolls, and we should be reaching out to them in any way that we have available to let people know. I mean, I don't know about you, but my card, we moved this year, by the way, and I got my card that told me my new voter location, and it told me that the election was on May the 17th. It didn't tell me that I could vote early, though, that I could have voted, you know, for those 3 days early voting. It just said you get to vote on election day. Well, you know, really, that's the last day you get to vote. You know, you can vote on coming up in November. So, so I want to make sure we're doing everything we can. I want to get with all 26 council members. I want notifications in their e-newsletters to go out. I want to have a team of people, whether it's an advisory group or a volunteer group, who want to go out to their neighborhood meetings to not just register voters, but give information about voting. This is the closest place. You know, we're looking at these other places. Do y'all have a better space that would work for you in your neighborhood? Do you have a better place that you can help us find places that work best for you in your neighborhood? You know, I want to work with communities to ensure that all of these locations are accessible. I'd like to have, whether it's once a month or however often, you know, some sort of at least release, whether it's a press conference or press release or something, to where I actually talk about where we are in the election cycle. You know, I have to say, during the pandemic, I would have said, Governor, you know, we've got an election coming up that I think is important, and I'd like to have 5 minutes of your daily press conference about COVID. I'd like you to consider letting me have, you know, the first 5 minutes to talk about where we are with elections, you know, in Jefferson County. And, you know, who knows how often he would let me do it. But I mean, that's the kind of thing. When I knock on doors and people say, where do I still vote over here now? And I'm like, you know, you shouldn't be asking a candidate where you vote now. You should know where you should go vote, because your county clerk has sent you an email, she's called you, she sent you a letter, she sent you a postcard, you know, she's had things in newsletters. You should know where to vote. So social media, all those things, we're going to do everything we can to let everybody know, including, you know, maybe having a volunteer team of people who will go and just leave flyers on doors, which has always been effective as well.
All right. I know we're on a little bit of a time crunch today, so I'm just going to kind of do like a speed round with you.
Okay.
I'm just going to bring up some things that are
Sure.
voting related, and just kind of let us know if you support it or not. If you have a brief statement on it,
Sure.
you can do that as well.
Sure.
But ranked choice voting.
I'm for it.
All right. Open primaries.
I'm for them.
What about removing the straight ticket options on the ballot?
I think that's an interesting concept, and I don't know enough about it to talk any more about it.
I know we are one of the few states that still do that. Most states don't at
Is
this
that
point.
right?
Yeah. My personal opinion is it just kind of, I think people should be more educated about each individual candidate and their policies and not just
Yeah.
kind of click that
Yeah.
or mark it. But
Sure, that makes sense too.
but yeah, okay. Mail-in voting,
I'm for it.
right? Paper ballots.
I'm for them.
Okay. What about online voting?
I'm not convinced that we are at a place in time with our technology that we can ensure there aren't going to be glitches technologically. I'm not wed and am not moving on paper ballots. I'm not comfortable yet or confident yet that we're there. If we can figure out a way to imprint or stamp or have an indicia some way online while you vote that you could print it off or that you could keep, I could warm up to something like that. That's my only
Great.
thought about that.
As an election integrity activist, I'm definitely against online voting because it's not that secure unless we do it with a technology like blockchain technology or something along that line that's transparent and everybody could see. Because if a vote is hacked on blockchain, everybody can see it. Whereas if a vote is hacked on the regular internet, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we're ready for that at this time. See, we're 36 minutes in. You still have your final pitch to make. Do you have a moment to take a couple questions from Melanie?
Sure.
All right. She gave me a big statement here. It's got
Sure.
3 or 4 questions in it
Okay.
that are related here. I'll kind of just give them to you one at a time. Do you think there's opportunity to see more diversity on the Board of Elections?
Yes, of course. And what I want to say to you is, if I'm fortunate enough to win in November, I'll just tell you, I won't be in this office more than 2 terms. I'm just telling you, it is part and partial my goal to take this office back, and it's my second goal that someone who doesn't look like me, is smarter than me and younger than me, in all likelihood, wants this job and wants transformational change, that I hope decides to step up and say, let's do this thing together, whoever you are, wherever you're out there. Because yes, of course, there needs to be more diversity, including in age and in all the other ways. I think that's probably age and ethnicity or race is the thing that I'm most concerned about. We need more young people, and we need more Black and brown people and people of color.
All right. How can somebody be on the board?
Well, you have to be appointed, and it's within the purview of that office. I know that the election officials come from the office, but there is a Democratic appointee and a Republican appointee, and so I believe it's the governor that appoints, or the party, the local party that appoints those 2, and so that would be your most immediate way, which to be, reaching out to anyone who's active in Democratic politics to express your interest in doing that, and it. Regardless, win, lose, or draw, I'm glad to work with anybody who wants to do that and to help them do that. It's time, people. There's lots of good and energy and opportunity out there, and we just need to tap into it and get out of the way.
You actually answered that question and her next question.
Uh-oh.
She has one last one here. Is the board responsible for deciding on voting locations? We had 2 locations in J-Town within a mile or 2. What about an early voting location in the Highlands?
Yes, the board does get to decide where those voting locations are. And there are I'm not sure what the standards would look like that would govern a decision to add one in the Highlands. I love the Highlands, and I have a lot of support in the Highlands. I'm tempted to say, let's do that, but I know that there has to be some parity. There has to be the number of voters in an area that would access a site. It would have to be, include, in a precinct, also, geographically in these 5 precincts. So if we were able to expand the number of voting locations countywide, perhaps there could be one in the Highlands that would be accessible and part of the early voting.
She says, thank you. Thank you for your question, Melanie. So that's all the questions I have. That's all the questions in the comments. So at this point, I'm just going to let you make your pitch to the voters. So, tell people to vote for you, basically, and let them know how to find you on social media, how they can donate, how they can volunteer.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much again, Rolf, for your time and the opportunity so much. I appreciate the good work that you and many of you are doing and have been doing in our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm Tina Ward-Pugh, and I'm running for county clerk. I believe that the county clerk should be actively engaged. I believe the county clerk ought to be about more than just our vehicles. I think that the county clerk should focus on the Board of Elections. I think that we have had someone in office for a quarter century who is a pro-Trump Republican, anti-choice Republican. And it's time for a change. I have worked side by side with many people in this community, have been honored to serve as the First Ward Alderwoman, the 9th District Councilwoman, and most recently the Director of the Office for Women for Metro Government. I'm honored to have the support of a wide variety of people around this community, from the west to the south and the east. I'm honored by that. And I think that sometimes we can just get on coast as elected officials when we've been in office for a long time, and things are just, this is the way we usually do them. And so we're not really thinking about how we can do those better. And I think that's where we are right now in the clerk's office. But what I know is that for 2.5 years, our democracy has been under attack. Every day we read about something new that's happening around the country that primarily Republicans are doing by blocking access to the ballot. In Georgia, you can't get now you can't get a bottle of water while standing in line because their Republican governor signed that a few weeks ago. Well, I'm telling you, why wasn't the county clerk holding a press conference to say, in Georgia, you may not be able to get a bottle of water, but I'm going to figure out how for you to get a bottle of water here. You should never worry about that. And so if I've got to get nonprofits out here giving water outside, that's what we're going to do. So we don't know, we don't know where the clerk is, because she hasn't said, my party's wrong on this. She hasn't said, I am different. She hasn't said, I am, I'm not a pro-Trump Republican. I'm not an anti-choice, because where is she? And you deserve better. We deserve better. And with your help, together with your help, we can take back this seat and we can begin to move forward and build on the change that's been building in the last 2.5 years, especially since, the killing of Breonna Taylor, and the people who've come together now, both from the East and the West and the South, who say, oh my God, where was I? What have we been doing? What can I do? Tell me how I can be involved. And that's the kind of clerk I'm going to be. And I think that's the kind of clerk that our community needs right now. So I'd love to have your vote, and I'd love to have you consider making a contribution to the campaign, because it's not easy. Sorry about that. I'm talking too much. And so you can do that online at TinaWardPugh, 4countyclerk.com. You can also volunteer. You can sign up to knock doors or drop literature where you don't have to talk to anybody, or you can make phone calls. You can come work in our office space. You can help us build yard signs. You can do all of those things and have fun while doing it, because we have a great group of people, staff, and volunteers who are coming in every day. So that's Tina Ward-Pugh, FordCountyClerk.com. You can follow us. We have a Facebook page, Tina Ward-Pugh for County Clerk. We also have a personal Twitter account, which is at Tina Ward-Pugh. So hopefully you'll find us. We're also here in our headquarters, where we are most every day till about 7 at night. And that's at 1993 Brownsboro Road. Proud to say it's in the Clifton Heights neighborhood. We've got a bunch of fun stuff coming up, so stay tuned, watch the website, look for things that are happening for our campaign. Would love to have you involved. And thanks for your consideration.
All right, Tina Ward-Pugh for County Clerk, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ralph.
And I wish you the best of luck on your
Thank
campaign
you.
trail.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So let me wrap this up real quick here after my many button presses. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you're sharing this out. Help educate your friends and family about who's on the ballot. Quick programming note: tomorrow I have a big show at 6 o'clock. That's going to have 5 judicial candidates on at the same time, so make sure you watch that. I'm going to have Tracy Davis, Yvette De La Guardia, Ted Schaus, Shannon Favre, and Karen Faulkner. So if you want to know about the judicial candidates, I've got 5 of them for you tomorrow night. Got 2 more interviews scheduled for October, and I've reached out to 4 other candidates that hopefully we can make those happen. So plenty to come. I've got plenty of interviews out there already, so check those out. Again, thanks for watching. I am local, independent, and nonprofit, so you can help me out by liking, commenting, and sharing. Smash all those appropriate buttons, follow, click the bell, etc., etc. Until next time, always think critically.